The sun was already scorching the tin roofs of Manila when Juan opened his eyes. His stomach grumbled as he rose from the old cardboard mat he shared with his mother in their one-room shack. The smell of frying oil and exhaust fumes filled the air outside, a mix of city chaos and survival. He slipped on his worn-out slippers, grabbed the small bundle of sampaguita garlands he had made the night before, and stepped into the streets. Every day was the same, but Juan carried something inside him that made him different. He loved to sing. As jeepneys rumbled past and vendors shouted for attention, he hummed quietly, letting melodies soften the hardness of his world. His mother always said, "Juan, your voice is your gift. One day, it will change everything." He never truly believed her, but her words stayed in his heart like a secret dream. That afternoon, as the golden light of sunset hit the crowded streets, Juan stood at a traffic stop, trying to sell his garlands to passing drivers. Some ignored him, some smiled sadly, and a few bought one or two out of pity. He didn't mind, he sang under his breath to keep his spirit alive. Across the street, a tourist couple stopped, curious about the little boy's voice. The woman whispered to her husband, "Listen, that kid's voice, it's beautiful." She took out her phone and recorded him as he sang an old Filipino love song, his voice pure and full of soul. The noise of traffic seemed to fade as his song rose above it all. When Juan finished, he blushed shyly as the couple applauded. They gave him a few pesos, thanked him, and walked away. He didn't know that the video they took would soon reach millions of people around the world. That night, Juan and his mother sat outside their small home, sharing a bowl of rice and fried fish. He told her about the kind foreigners who listened to him sing, and she smiled, touching his hair gently. "See, I told you, Anik, your voice will take you places," she said softly. He laughed, not realizing how true those words would soon become. Meanwhile, somewhere across the ocean, that same video was uploaded to the internet with the title, "The Boy from Manila Who Sings Like an Angel." Within hours, it began to spread. By the next morning, thousands of people had shared the clip. Viewers from America, Europe, and Asia filled the comments with words of awe and tears. "This boy deserves the world," one wrote. "Someone get him on a talent show." Another said. The video hit 1 million views in 2 days. Juan had no idea. He was back on the streets, singing the same songs, completely unaware that the world had just discovered him. Reporters began to visit his neighborhood, asking about the boy with the golden voice. The neighbors pointed to the small shack where Juan lived, proud but protective. When a local TV crew finally found him, they asked him to sing on camera. He hesitated but sang anyway, his voice trembling at first, then growing stronger, richer, full of emotion. The clip aired on national news that night, and suddenly, Juan's life began to shift. A week later, an email arrived at a local community center addressed to Juan and his mother. It was from a talent scout working with America's Got Talent. The message was short but unbelievable: "We saw Juan's video. We would love for him to audition for AGT this season." His mother couldn't believe it. She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. They didn't have passports or money, but for the first time, hope felt real. Neighbors gathered around their small home, cheering and offering help. The community raised funds, small coins and bills from people who had little but wanted to see one of their own reach the stars. Juan stood there, wide-eyed, as people hugged him and said, "Go, Juan. Show the world what the Philippines sounds like." That night, he looked at the sky and whispered to himself, "Maybe Mama was right. Maybe my voice really can change everything." The day of departure came sooner than Juan could believe. The people of his neighborhood gathered at the airport, cheering as if he were already a hero. He had never been to such a place before: bright floors, cold air, and people rushing in every direction. His mother held his hand tightly, afraid he might get lost in the sea of travelers. Their tickets had been donated by kind strangers online, and even the airline staff seemed moved by the boy's story. When the plane finally took off, Juan pressed his face to the window, staring at the clouds. He had never seen the sky like this, endless and peaceful. His mother wiped a tear and whispered, "You're flying now, Anik. Just like your dreams." Juan smiled, his heart racing between fear and excitement. He imagined Simon Cowell's face, the bright stage, the huge crowd waiting to hear him sing. He promised himself he would not let anyone down. When they landed in Los Angeles, everything felt too big to be real. The cars were massive, the buildings reached the clouds, and the air smelled different, new and full of possibility. Volunteers from the Filipino community picked them up and took them to a small motel near the studio. That night, Juan couldn't sleep. He lay awake listening to the sound of cars outside, imagining the next day. He pictured the lights, the judges, the audience. He had only ever sung to passing drivers or curious neighbors, never to thousands of people. His mother sat beside him, whispering prayers in Tagalog, asking for strength and calm. She told him, "Just sing from your heart. That's enough." The next morning, they arrived at the America's Got Talent studio. The waiting area was filled with dancers, magicians, and singers warming up their voices. Juan clutched his small backpack and looked around nervously. Everyone seemed so prepared, dressed in fancy clothes, holding instruments or costumes. He wore a simple white shirt and jeans donated by a local family. When a producer came to get him, Juan's knees shook, but his mother gave him a reassuring nod. "Go, my son. The world is waiting." He took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The bright lights almost blinded him. The theater was massive, filled with faces staring at him. He saw Simon Cowell, Sofia Vergara, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel sitting behind the judges' table. Simon leaned forward and asked in his calm British voice, "Hello there, what's your name?" Juan's voice trembled. "My name is Juan, sir, and I come from Manila, Philippines." The audience cheered loudly at the mention of his country. Simon smiled and said, "All right, Juan. Show us what you've got." The music started, the opening notes of "You Raise Me Up." For a second, Juan forgot where he was. He closed his eyes and imagined he was back in the streets of Manila, singing under the fading light. Then his voice came out, soft, clear, and full of emotion. The crowd grew silent. Each note carried his story, the hunger, the hope, the endless nights of struggle. His mother stood backstage with tears streaming down her face. The judges looked at each other, surprised by the power of this tiny boy's voice. When he hit the final note, his voice soared so high it felt like the entire room held its breath. And then silence, pure, heavy silence. A second later, the audience exploded into applause. People stood, cheering, some even crying. Juan gasped, unsure what to do. Then Simon Cowell slowly stood up. He looked at Juan with a rare, proud smile, and without saying a word, reached forward and pressed the golden buzzer. The sound echoed, and suddenly golden confetti rained down from above. Juan dropped to his knees, covering his face, overwhelmed by joy and disbelief. His mother ran onto the stage and wrapped him in her arms as Simon walked up to them, saying softly, "You have a gift, young man. And the world needs to hear it." The crowd roared again. For Juan, the boy who once sang on the streets for coins, that moment was magic, the beginning of a dream that no one could ever take away. The moment Juan received the golden buzzer, his life changed forever. Reporters surrounded him after the show, cameras flashing as people shouted his name. The other contestants congratulated him, and Simon Cowell himself told Juan privately, "You have something very rare, heart." Juan didn't fully understand the meaning of those words, but he felt them deeply. His mother could hardly stop crying, holding his hand tightly as they left the theater. Outside, people lined up just to take pictures with him. He wasn't used to attention. All his life he'd been invisible in the busy streets of Manila, and now the whole world seemed to see him. That night, back at the hotel, he sat by the window, staring at the glittering Los Angeles skyline. He thought about his friends back home, the narrow alleys, the laughter of kids playing barefoot, and his mother's tired smile. He promised himself he would never forget where he came from, no matter how bright the lights became. Weeks passed, and Juan began preparing for the semifinals. The producers provided vocal coaches, stylists, and even a translator to help his mother during interviews. He was amazed at everything, the big cameras, the rehearsals, the makeup rooms. Yet, despite all the glamour, he missed home. Sometimes, before sleeping, he would quietly hum the same street songs he used to sing in Manila, just to remind himself of who he really was. When the day of the semifinals came, he chose to sing a Filipino English version of "You'll Never Walk Alone." The moment he stepped on stage, everyone recognized him. The audience erupted in applause, chanting his name. When he sang, his voice was stronger, braver, filled with emotion and gratitude. He didn't just sing notes, he told his story through every word. When the performance ended, all 4 judges stood up in a standing ovation. Simon looked emotional as he said, "Juan, you are a reminder of why we do this show. You've inspired millions." The crowd chanted, "Juan, Juan," and he smiled through his tears. He didn't win the competition that night, but it didn't matter. The next day, his story was everywhere: news outlets, social media, television. Millions watched clips of his golden buzzer moment. People from around the world sent letters, gifts, and words of encouragement. Even famous singers reached out, offering to collaborate with him. Juan became a symbol of hope, a reminder that talent can come from the most unexpected places. After the show ended, Juan and his mother returned to Manila. The airport was packed with people waving flags, holding banners that read, "Welcome home, Juan," and "Proud of you." He was stunned to see how much love was waiting for him. Cameras followed him as he walked through the crowd, tears streaming down his face. The mayor even announced a city celebration in his honor. Yet, when all the excitement faded, Juan wanted only one thing: to give back. With the money he earned from performances and donations, he built a small music center in his neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, just a few rooms with instruments and speakers, but it was filled with laughter and dreams. Street kids came every day to learn songs, practice instruments, and believe in something bigger than poverty. Juan taught them that singing wasn't just about fame or applause, it was about expressing your soul, about believing that your voice mattered. He often told them, "I sang for coins once, but I never sang for money. I sang for hope." His story continued to inspire millions online. Years later, when he performed again on the AGT stage as a guest star, Simon Cowell introduced him proudly. "From the streets of Manila to the heart of America, this is Juan, the boy who reminded us all what true talent looks like." The audience gave him another standing ovation. Juan sang the same song that had changed his life, "You Raise Me Up," but this time his voice carried something even greater: wisdom, gratitude, and love. When the final note ended, he looked toward the sky, thinking of where it all began, and whispered softly, "Thank you."